I don't think our minds can comprehend infinity. This is something I've heard often when asking a person of LDS faith about the infinite lineage of gods. I've come to the conclusion that there must be a source that all of these individuals are getting this phrase from, since it's a strange thing for so many individual people to all independently think of, nearly word for word at times. Rhetorically, it's one of the most brilliant responses possible. However, logically, it's got a few problems. But before I get into the actual argument, I want to clear up what I'm arguing against. The infinite lineage of gods refers to the idea that there was a god who created another god, who in turn created another, and then that other created another, so on and so forth with no beginning or end. My basis for asserting this as the LDS view is the conclusion that becomes apparent from these premises. 1. Joseph Smith had stated, as man is now, God once was, so God was once a human. 2. Humans can only exist if a god created them, so our Heavenly Father was created by another god. 3. There exists a god other than our own, and he created our god. This isn't enough to say that there exists an infinite lineage of gods. The only conclusion that can be reached from these premises alone is that there exists at least two gods, our God and the God that created him. However, if our God was created by another God, that raises a question: was that God created? If so, by who? Every person of LDS faith I've spoken to doesn't seem to have much trouble accepting that God's God was created by another God, so even though this can't be simply proven by branching off of axiomatic premises, I'm going to conject this as the LDS stance for two reasons. 1. If our God had achieved his exaltation through fulfillment of his nature as a mortal being, and we are destined to achieve the same status as our God through our exaltation, then it stands to reason that the God who held the God status over our God during his mortal life went through the same process. If you see a plant grow from a seed until it's fully bloomed, then you can deduce that a plant that you see for the first time when it's fully bloomed also started as a seed, unless you have a reason to think that this plant has a different set of standards applied to it. 2. Every time I bring up the infinite lineage, I'm given the response, "We can't understand it." Not, "We don't believe that." If someone were to ask me why I believe Mozart is the greatest composer who ever lived, I would correct them and say that I believe Chopin is the greatest composer who ever lived. I wouldn't start giving explanations for a stance that I don't even hold. With that out of the way, I'd like to start addressing the problem with this claim. Everything that happens has to be caused by something else. Nothing happens with nothing causing it to happen. Think about the butterfly effect, but the thing that most people don't realize about the butterfly effect is that it can always be traced back further than its quote-unquote origin. Even if you want to start with a butterfly flapping its wings, you still have to ask, what caused the butterfly to flap its wings in that spot? Let's say that a child had chased the butterfly from location A to location B. What caused the child to go to location A in the first place? Let's say that location A is an open field and the kid wanted to fly his kite. What caused him to have a kite to fly? Let's say that his grandpa saw it in a store and wanted to get it for his grandson as a birthday gift. What caused the kite to be in the store? I could keep going. My point in this analogy is to show that everything that happens needs to be caused by something else. The dominoes can't go back forever, no matter how powerful the dominoes are. St. Thomas Aquinas observed this truth and had deemed God to be the uncaused cause. Everything that happens eventually can be traced back to him. But with the infinite lineage, not only does God stop being the uncaused cause because he was caused, but he also exists in a situation that is in juxtaposition to this notion. God is one creation in a lineage that has no beginning. In other words, the LDS position asserts that the dominoes do in fact go back forever. There's a second but similar problem that this notion presents. Everything that exists can only come into being because something else caused it to do so. A tree can't plant itself, and a leaf can't grow on a tree that's not there. What do I mean by this? Basically, if something came into existence, its existence is contingent on something else. Side note, this doesn't apply to the Catholic view of God because we don't believe that he ever came into existence, we believe that he is eternal. For a leaf to exist, it's contingent on a tree. And for a child to exist, their existence is contingent on their parents, and their parents are contingent on theirs, so on and so forth, all the way back to Adam and Eve. But with an infinite lineage of gods, either the contingency has to go back forever, which doesn't make any sense, or there has to be a prime originator or first god, who created all other gods. I will assume that the latter is not the stance of the LDS faith, since I've been told multiple times now, our minds can't comprehend infinity. Why would I be told this if the gods are finite and infinity has nothing to do with the topic? With that out of the way, I'd like to address the LDS response to this. I don't think our minds can comprehend infinity. As I alluded to earlier, this is a rhetorically brilliant response. There are only two immediate responses that one can give when someone says this. 1. I agree that I can't comprehend infinity, yet I will continue to make assertions about something that are entirely out of my scope of understanding. 2. I disagree with you. I have no trouble comprehending infinity. It's obvious why the first response is flawed. The second response can't be used because the only way to make it is to put yourself on a pedestal and claim that you have a deep understanding of intensely complicated subjects, which is why, rhetorically, it's a brilliant response. The only real option is to just agree with it. But there's still a few reasons why it doesn't work. What does it mean to comprehend infinity? Does it mean to be aware of the concept of numbers going up forever? Anyone can do that. But of course, understanding any concept fully and entirely is impossible. We as humans can't understand perfection, yet we can observe situations in which perfection can and cannot be applied. The same goes for infinity. And when put into other contexts, it becomes apparent why this line of reasoning doesn't quite work. Someone can make an argument for any given theological truth by quoting the words of Jesus in the gospel accounts. And I could reply, I don't think our minds can comprehend what Jesus meant. And it's true, our minds can't fully comprehend what Jesus meant in anything he said. But we can still come to know truth through using our reason and observation. Lastly, I have to point out the double standard of this refutation. Non-comprehension goes both ways. One can't make the claim that we can comprehend infinity enough to say that there is an infinite lineage of gods, but we conversely can't comprehend it enough to assert that there isn't. Either we can understand infinity, in which case I can assert that an infinite lineage of gods is impossible, or we can't understand infinity, in which case, which one of us is correct might as well be a coin flip. And on a similar note, to say we can't comprehend infinity, you have to have some amount of comprehension of infinity. In other words, saying I've come to know about X that it is impossible to know anything about X is a contradiction because it shows you know something about X. The statement is no longer true when it's applied to itself. X in this case is infinity, and if we can know and comprehend aspects of infinity without comprehending the fullness of it, then I'm comfortable in asserting that an infinite lineage of gods is impossible.